Well, good morning or afternoon and good evening. Welcome back. We're looking at the problem definition and research objectives in this lecture. I've split it into two to make things easier for you. Um, so once this lecture is finished, there will be another lecture which will complete this section. And the section is really on problem definition and research objectives. Now, arguably, this is the most important element of the research process because it's both the incorporates two important elements, and that's the foundation as well as setting the basis for your planning. So if one thinks about it, the problem definition is the most important step in the research project, because if you don't understand what the problem is, then you're not going to be able to formulate a solution. And it's not dissimilar to in life. You know, if you don't accept that there's a problem, you can't work on a solution. Or put differently, from a student, or actually everybody's perspective, if you don't understand that you don't know, then you can't learn. So it's not dissimilar. So it's a very critical aspect of the whole research process. Um, and, and that's because, as I say in the slides, a clearly defined research problem is critical to the success of the research project. So we really need to make sure that we get on top of this and do a lot of research, and I'll talk about anecdotal research, and I'll explain what that means in due course, to make sure that we really understand what the issues are here. So when you start off, it's not entirely clear what the problem is. You often become aware of issues. You know, you could hear people talking. You could have a look at your sales reports, and things aren't looking that good. You could chat to your sales reps or your people on the ground, and they might say, well, you know, there seems to be a problem with this, and people don't like that, and that's really not enough to make decisions on. So that could just give you an indication that there is a problem. In other words, it's what they call a symptom of a problem. And they also call this anecdotal evidence. And once again, it's not really good enough information on which to make a decision, but it does give you an indication that there is some sort of problem that needs to be dealt with. Okay, so in order to gather background information about the situation or the research problem, the first thing is that you need to do some form of situation analysis. You know, what happened, what's going on, just a broad overview. Look at your internal environment, perhaps the issue is there and perhaps that's where you need to do the research, or the external environment. And you need to take into consideration everything, you know, your strategy, your resources, I beg your pardon, consumers, competitors, and the general situation in the industry. Literature review is always a good idea. You'll learn from when you get to your honors project. Some of the advice which you might get is to read and read again. So reading is always a good idea. Discuss the issue with experts, always a good idea. Even if your personal life, speak to people. You can always learn from virtually everyone. Somebody might just make one point and might give you a good insight of the research that you need to do. Another way is to look at case studies, what has happened in similar situations, perhaps in other industries. I drew the analogy earlier on between hotels and airlines, very similar perhaps in terms of the types of issues they face in regard to marketing and managing people. So you could look at that as a case study. Okay, so I've split this lecture into two just to make things easier for you. So let's carry on with the next lecture as soon as you're ready. Thank you.